Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. This video has been prepared by a group of 4 members. There are Nur Atika binti Abdullah, Intan Arisa binti Azman, Nur Najatul Balqis binti Muhammad Dan, and Ahmad Asti Zaimi bin Ahmad Najib. In this video, we will present based on the topic that has been given to our group, which is Islamic Unit Trust. Okay, for first, we will go to the introduction. Okay, an Islamic unit trust can be defined as a group of the specialized collective instrument funds which offer the investors the opportunity to invest in a diversified portfolio of the securities that are managed and selected by the professional portfolio managers in accordance to the Sharia principles. Okay, that's mean this Islamic unit trust, it comprises of a joint pool where the investor will contribute the capital for the investment purpose to earn the profits in adherence to the principles, rules and regulation of the Sharia law. An Islamic unit trust or the mutual fund is a type of the equity fund that collects funds from the investors and pools them for the investment in stocks, bonds, or other investment products. The return from the investment is paid back to investor proportionally after deducting the costs related to the fund and administration fee or the fund's portion of the profit. So this depends on the contract use. Okay, these funds are similar to their conventional counterparts, but it is different in their mode of the financing, in the nature of the investment, which it must be on the Sharia compliance. When we know that this Islamic funds is based on the Sharia principles, so that's mean it will exclude the investments in the companies that involve in the non-Sharia compliance activities, such as the products or the services that related to the alcohol, gambling, tobacco, non-halal product, interest-based banking, conventional insurance, and other non-permissible activities that according to the Sharia law. The main features of the Islamic Unit Trust Fund is the prohibition of the riba, means that there is anything which is interest-based is not allowed. Second is the prohibition of the gharar, means that there is the restrictions on the uncertainty and risk. And the next is the prohibition of the maisir. It's referring to the forbiddance of the gambling and any business activities that related to it. Some activities that are contrary to the Islamic custom are also prohibited. This is because in Islamic Unit Trust Fund, it must be Sharia compliance. So any activities that related to the riba, gharar and maisir are not permissible. Number 2 is the Sharia stock screening process. In the Islamic Unit Trust Fund, the Sharia screening process has been carried out to determine whether the classification of funds that invested in it is the Sharia or non-Sharia compliance. Basically, the screening is focused on the two main compartments, which is the business activities and the financial ratio. The business activities is being carried out to investigate the nature of the core business, while the financial ratio is being carried out to check the revenue of the company, whether they are free from the prohibited of the income or they are involved with it, but under the acceptable ratio that has been permitted by the Sharia. Next, the other features of the instrument is the purification process. In the Islamic Unit Trust Fund, there is the purification process that is done in the form of zakat and sedekah. The debates on what should be purified can be categorized into three views, namely capital gain, dividend, and asset or liabilities. The purification process for the zakat is conducted differently between the countries.
They have their own Sharia board consists of Islam law scholars and experts to advise everything, monitor and ensure there are compliance with Sharia principles. Basically, there are principles outlined by the Quranic revelation and the practice of Prophet Muhammad SAW and his companions. The prohibitions of riba, or we call interest, gara, and mysil, or we known as gambling. The example of contract used in are murabahah, mudarabah, musyarakah, and ijarah. I will explain about the contract they use in Islamic unit trust. Firstly, murabahah. Murabahah fund invest in companies whose transactions are undertaken on a cost plus basis. Secondly, mudarabah. Mudarabah fund invest in the specific business activity on the basis of profit and loss sharing. Furthermore, for the musyarakah, the unit trust and third party contribute funds in the joint venture producing equity participations. Last but not least, ijarah fund. The Islamic trust finance equipment, building or entire project for a third party against an agreed rental. The whole purpose is to meet the maqasid syariah objective. One of the objective is preservation of wealth. It explained by the Muslim jurists covers in the encouragement of generating, accumulating, preserving and also disturbing the wealth in a just and fair manner. Therefore, in Islamic unit trust fund, investors have the opportunities to generate, accumulate and preserve their wealth with Sharia compliance investment. The contemporary Sharia experts are almost unanimous on this point. If all the transactions and business activity of a listed company are fully compliant with the Sharia principles and guidelines, then its shares can be purchased, held and sold from the Sharia perspective. Comparison between Islamic unit trust and conventional unit trust. Islamic unit trust using Sharia principle. The law based on Al-Quran, Sunnah and Ijtihad of scholar. For conventional, there is no Sharia principle apply. Basically, it's man-made law. Secondly, Islamic unit trust invests only in Sharia compliant financial instruments. There's no involved with prohibition elements such as riba, gara, maisir and so on. For conventional, they can invest in any financial instruments. Conventional instrument use interest and doesn't care about halal and haram term. Moreover, Islamic unit trust is using income purification mechanism like zakat and sadaqah. They automatically purification by doing zakat and sadaqah. In conventional unit trust, there is no income purification mechanism. Last but not least, Islamic unit trust is supervised by Sharia Advisory Body. Sharia Advisory Body of Security Commissions will monitor and advise the instruments. For conventional, there's no involved in Sharia Advisory Body required.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Intan Arisa binti Azman, and I will now continue on the structures of the Islamic Unit Trust. Before we continue with the structures of Islamic Unit Trust, we need to know who are people who are involved in the Islamic Unit Trust. First, we need to know that the Islamic Unit Trusts are very different from the conventional mutual fund. And in the Islamic Unit Trust, the people who are involved are, the first one, we have the investor, which is the unit holders. The second one, we have the fund manager, or we call it as a mudarik. The third one, we also have the Sharia advisor, and we also have a trustee, or we call it as a muwakil. There are also a few fee that need to be concerned of, such as the management fee and the trustee fee, and there are also a sales and marketing practice that are also needed to be attention, because in some countries the selling practice for Islamic fund are defined by the regulator. Okay, and then we will continue on the models of the Islamic Unit Trust. The first one, we know that typically unit trust fund is a public fund. This is where the investor or the unit holder purchase the units from the unit trust company or from an authorized agent, where from the sales of the unit, they would invest on the many or the various instrument investment. And then from that, they will form an asset portfolio, and then from that they will each receive return from each of their investment. As we can see on the slide, it shows that the manager are manage the unit trust from the unit holder throughout the investment, and they will manage the unit trust and then invest in various type of investment instrument, and until the returns of the investment. So the second one, we have a different model, which we have a mutawakil, or we call it as a trustee. So what the function of trustee here? First one, we have the investor. The investor would invest in the unit trust, and then the unit trust would go to the mutawakil as a safekeeping for the asset or the securities, or we call it under the SIRC. And then we will continue to the asset would be invest and managed by the fund manager, and then the fund managers were invested in the various investment instruments that are based on the Sharia compliance, and then after the investment, they would have a return, and the return would be received by the beneficiaries, or we call it as the unit holder, the first investor.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Azdi Zaimi bin Ahmad Najib, the next presenter. Okay, let's continue with the flow. Next, we have the case study. The case study that we focus on is the private equity fund in the United Arab Emirates. The private equity fund was structured to achieve a long-term capital gain from taking the controlling stake in two industrial companies in the UAE. The private equity fund raised a specific sum of money from private and institutional investors. The fund was launched in December 2012, where the transaction used a Saudi Arabian SPC, special purpose company, to raise capital. The Saudi Arabia SPC entered into a trust agreement with a UAE nominee, with the latter holding the fund's 51% stake in the underlying investment in a UAE company. A second investment was made in an affiliated offshore company, which means in the overseas company, and this allowed the Saudi Arabia SPC to invest directly in the offshore company. The governance structure of the SPC is fundamentally a work-class structure, even if not so named. This allows the manager to earn fees from work done, and the investors grant incentive to the manager for achieving and exceeding the fund's goals. Private equity often takes risks associated with changes in a business. In some cases, the changes may be an underperformance of a business, hence the fund has a vulture energy. Other times, like in this case, the underlying business is in transition with the founders and at least one legacy investor seeks to exit, but the management wishes to grow the business. The private equity fund team follow the implementation by seeking to add commercial value to the underlying business. First, they establish a 100-day plan which look to improve corporate governance at the target companies and to undertake an analysis of how the acquired companies could improve their performance in the Saudi Arabian market. Second, they develop a short-term strategy to improve the operation efficiency of the acquired companies in the context of business expansion. Third, they develop the medium and long-term strategies which were geared towards goal, which will facilitate the fund's successful exit. The next figure on the next slide provide the potential exit option in the private equity funds. Okay, so here we have the exit options in a private equity funds. The first option is the sale to regional strategic buyer. Sale to a regional company operating within the same industry and having complementary business. Buyer may be willing to pay a premium price to enjoy the benefits from economies of scale and post-acquisition synergies. The second option is sale to financial buyer. Sale to financial buyers such as another private equity fund, a family office, or an investment firm. Financial buyers may be seeking enhancement or diversification of their existing investment portfolios. Third, we have sale to international conglomerate. Sale to international conglomerate seeking to enter or consolidate its position in the Middle East. Given the depth of strong companies in the Middle East that are willing to forfeit their control, large international conglomerates are likely to pay a significant acquisition premium. And last but not least, the initial public offering, IPO. Listing of the company on the regional bourse through an IPO. In a strong IPO market, a premium valuation can be realized and liquid market for the company's share is created. That's all.
In conclusion, we could see that the conventional mutual fund and also the Islamic unit trust are totally different, which also we could see in the Islamic trust fund are invested in the portfolio of the Sharia. They are approved financial instruments such as Islamic approved equities, Islamic bond or recorded as a sukuk, Islamic deposit, and also Islamic money market instrument. Other than that, the Islamic unit trusts are more universe. This can be seen that the Sharia compliance unit trust can only be invested by the investor on the asset or securities that are Sharia compliance. In the end, it shows that the unit trust or Islamic unit trust are more flexible than the conventional mutual fund.